The controversy surrounding the 4.8 billion naira pipeline surveillance contract in the Niger Delta has ended with a commitment to support the project and the fight against crude oil theft in the region. This was after a 3-hour meeting of the Ijaw Nation stakeholders presided over by Governor Doye Diri in Yenagoa. President of the Ijaw National Congress, Professor Benjamin Okaba, joins us now to speak on the Niger Delta Peace Initiative that led to the settlement of rift among former Niger Delta militant warlords over pipeline protection contract. Good to have you on Newsday. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor.
Thank you.
Can you give us an idea of what transpired at the meeting held in Yenagoa?
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting that held on the 23rd of September 2022 in Government House, Yenagoa, was a major intervention by His Excellency the Governor of Bayelsa State, which to a large extent was the icing of the cake because the INC had, since the first week of the announcement and the expressions of disagreement among the various parties, had set up a committee of 5 to interface with the various parties, I will call them as agitators, that for one reason or the other felt that they should have had the contract or they should have benefited in one way or the other the contract. So that day, like I said earlier, was was the culmination of various efforts that were made by the INC. So it was to finally get the views of the various groups that we had taken individually through the visit of the 5-man committee and the personal visit I also made to a few of them. Yes, so if you want me to talk about what happened, I would like to start with how it was started. Maybe that will give us a proper understanding of put everything in proper concept. So for us, we consider it as family disagreement and the need to also clear some misgivings and misconceptions. For instance, when the news about the contract got to us and too many Niger Deltans, people thought that the surveillance contract of 4 billion naira plus was to cover the entire Niger Delta. So the first question people were raising, why Tompolo from one ethnic nationality be given the contract to cover the entire Niger Delta? We have other ex-militants, other security outfits elsewhere. So why must you concentrate the contract on one person? Some persons even raise questions about the transparency in the process of the contract administration and award. There were also insinuations to the effect that the Tompolo's contract was to cancel all other existing contracts. And I think these were the major reasons why the various parties took the various outlines they did. So the INC, after setting up the committee that was given on the 26th of August, given a 2 weeks mandate to interface and discuss the remote and immediate causes of the various altercations and threats to life. They came reported and we went into it, and we thought that the first thing to do is to disabuse the minds of people as to those false information. It is on record that the Tompolo's contract is just 1 out of 5, and that there are even some other persons who had larger chunk of the entire contract. what I mean, the entire surveillance contracting. We know of a king whose contract sum even triples that of Tompolo. Nobody heard about that anyway, to the extent that when that of Tompolo was announced, even invited people all across, all ex-militants, youth bodies were invited from even areas that their monarchs even had those contracts, because they felt all was just about Tompolo. Then secondly, we also had agitations from persons that were perceived to be Arewa youths, saying that the contract should be cancelled. But we investigated thoroughly and discovered that those persons that paraded themselves as Arewa youths were not truly Arewa youths. They were fake youths that were used to destabilize the entire process. And when we gave the correct information as the contract just being just one section of a total contract award, then secondly, contracts that were awarded earlier on were not actually affected by the new contract to Tompolo, and that Tompolo had also made commitment through a phone call to me personally and to as many persons that visited him, that he was going to use the contract to unite Ijaw people, unite the entire Niger Delta, that it was not, yes, the contract bears his name, but we pull in as many resources and resourceful companies as possible so that proper thing be done and everybody is made to benefit from the contract. And the meeting
Professor
of
Okaba,
23rd, yes.
Professor Okaba,
yes.
Just for the sake of time, I apologize for interrupting you. I know you wanted to get into exactly what was discussed in the meeting, but I'm sure that as the course of the interview goes, we will be asking you more about that. But is it safe to say that there is a bit more peace now, especially when it comes to those who were upset about this surveillance contract? Is it safe to say that all hands will be joining in to help this situation along with government Tompolo?
Yes, yeah. You know, ordinarily, the Tompolo's outfit does not even have, or no outfit has the capacity to do all of that without collaborating with other outfits. It's a mega contract, and you need to work with other people to be able to be effective. You know, this looking at different terrains that are peculiar with peculiar circumstances and challenges, and you need to engage people from those areas that are very familiar with the social ecosystem and the flow of the structure of the flow of the pipelines. These things are not just easy to locate. You need people who have traversed those environments to be familiar with that. So ordinarily, yes, you cannot do it alone, but the assurance has been given that, look, we have to come together. And that was actually the basis for the peace accord that was reached, that we have to come together as brothers. We shouldn't allow this to divide ourselves and all that. And I think we went further to even set up a 5-man committee to go further into the nitty-gritty of the awards, so that they detail out what should be given at one point to some persons, what should be the nature of involvement and engagement. All a 5-man committee headed by Joshua Fumodo, one-time president of INC, has been given a marching order, so to speak, by the meeting that day, to do that and report back and make sure that they cross the T's and dot the I's, so that the peace that we're able to attain that day is sustained going forward.
Now, Professor Okaba, thank you so much for that detailed explanation. There are some people who believe that this pipeline surveillance contract is a clear abdication of government's responsibility. I'd like you to reply to that. And also at the same time, we've been hearing reports that some elites are conniving with security forces to carry out oil theft in the Niger Delta. So is this contract enough to break that racket? Two questions in one.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me take the last question first. The oil theft is a complicated criminal venture in this country. Complicated in the sense that you cannot locate it to a particular sector. In fact, what goes by way of oil theft in the creeks is infinitesimal compared to what goes out there. In fact, I support totally the statements credited to the Chief of Naval Staff, where he talked about high-level collaboration and involvement by the personnel, military personnel, by even staff of the NNPC. Then if you go through the trajectory, you also discover that it is not just within this country. Just go offshore, you will see so many vessels lining up there, and they're just like the Chief of Naval Staff reported, that most of these vessels freely come into the shores of this country, load as much as they want without any form of documentation. Any form of documentation, and steal our oil off, right? Steal our oil off, and at the end of the day, you see when they are even intercepted, one order will come from somewhere to say, look, please, just get them off. I remember the one that was found at Equatorial Guinea, which had the capacity, which sucked off Nigeria's capacity for 3 days production, were found in one super vessel. If they are not intercepted, that will have just gone off without anybody knowing. We are not talking about the barrel work that goes on in some quarters, also on the oil. You are aware that at some point it was even said that the government of Nigeria cannot even account for what is oil production and is oil export. So it's a big scan involving very big men in this country. Therefore, thinking that the pipeline surveillance was going to solve the problem is laughable, because what the surveillance, yes, is to the creeks, but what happens with other major components, those big vessels coming in from out and all that. Like we did an analysis and we said, look, what's the level of theft in the region can be equated to using a bucket to fetch, just go to the water side to fetch water. The bigger stealing of Nigerian oil involves major tankers, and is very capital intensive. And the chain of involvement of very big persons makes the exercise very difficult for anybody to say this is going to be the way forward to stopping or reducing the phenomenon of oil theft in this country. What we need to do, if we want to, is the government on top must be very serious. And when the government is serious, then the government must put machinery in place at the top, because the whole stealing takes place on top, and it percolates downwards, down. So if you are serious at the top and they place the right people in the right places, then this surveillance contract can only assist. Yes, the young men can provide information. They can do many other things because they are within the creeks, they are within the place. But if they don't have the support and backing of the government, there's nothing they can do about it. Yes, surveillance contract. You have some people, maybe Tompolo, where you just have some trained men or uniform or not uniform men and all that. And if you see an order coming, or with someone with a big uniform, with big rank coming up this way, they would definitely recapitulate and allow them do their business. If you go into the creeks, you'll be ashamed of yourself as to the level of compromise. I think that is not good enough moving forward as a nation.
All right, thank you for that, Professor. It seems that's the issue with Nigeria in a larger scale, the endemic nature of corruption and how high it goes and how low it goes and what it affects. In what you just described, like my colleague earlier said, it is an abdication of the government in order to, they haven't been able to do their jobs, which is why they've brought Tompolo in to survey the creeks. So that has been taken care of, but you've also explained this higher level blockchain of corruption and big men who are involved in this oil thievery, which we all know it's quite capital intensive. So it should be a little bit easier to maybe point fingers at those who are guilty. Now, do you recommend that the government take on the same tactics that they have in order to survey the creeks, seeing as they haven't been able to do it themselves? Yeah. Is this something that they should do? And do you have any recommendations as to who can get the job done? Would it be someone from the inside?
Yeah, yes. The first place, as a stopgap approach, yes, the award of contract to the insiders, right, should be taken as a first step. But government should take further steps. There are other high-tech methods of getting to know what is going on. We are aware that there are instruments that can monitor the entire coastal belt of this nation. There are somewhere, but people are not using them. Just like the same tragedy we faced with the train, the railways and all that. The minister once complained that he wanted to, they preempted all of this. But you know what happened. I also know what happens thereafter and all that. So it's just for the government to be serious about this, because it's a colossal, this has resulted in colossal losses to this nation economically. And not just that. If you look at the economic, the health hazards and the other associated dangers, it is something that all hands must be on deck to quickly address. Because in that day meeting, we leverage on the situation we find ourselves and say, look, it's not just about protecting the pipelines, because ordinarily that is even very disgusting. It's like telling the man to be a gate man in his father's house. We produce the oil, and we are now asked to protect the pipeline so that they can siphon these things in trillions. And the peanuts, the crumbs that falls off the father's table is what we are fighting over. It's a very shameful thing. We should be looking at other hazards that are associated with this. The health hazards, like when you've heard of the illegal refineries, which are all different forms of oil theft. And these illegal refineries have made our environment so bad to the extent that if you go to Port Harcourt with a white dress, walk through the streets in 1 hour, your white dress changes because of the effect of what they call soot. People inhale carbon and other injurious chemicals into the system. To the extent that people are dying instrumentally. The Bayelsa State government even revealed that the budget for health for the year is almost exhausted because of the approvals for local and international trips to cure respiratory diseases resulting from all of this. So people were actually warned against trying to get rich. Yes, the fire gives you some millions today, but we must be mindful of the sustainability of livelihood. We're mindful of environmental protection. We must be mindful of our future. We should be mindful of our today and our future. So all those factors were put in place, and it's not just about the pipeline surveillance contract, but people say, look, let us work together to stop illegal bunkering in the region. Let us work together to advance the job course which is about resource control and resource management.
Professor Benjamin Okaba, President, Ijaw National Congress, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.